Good day, Laverne here, and I'd like to thank you for joining me. In this video, I'm going to be discussing chapters 17 and 18 of the book of Revelation, in which we find a description of what is known as either the great prostitute, the great harlot, or the great whore, depending on the version of the Bible that you are reading. But whichever version you are reading, she is also known as Mystery Babylon. These are the two names given to her, either the great harlot or Mystery Babylon. Now, I'm going to be comparing what I believe is the easiest lie that is being taught, and that is pertaining to the explanation of who she is. I believe this lie that she is the United States, that America is Mystery Babylon, well, this lie is so easily discerned that if you belong to a church where a pastor or preacher is teaching this from the pulpit, or if you are following a popular pastor on YouTube, or even just a layman on YouTube, and you have been following this person and you think, hey, this person is really something I can connect with. This person seems to have it together when it comes to discerning the truth about Scripture. Well, this should be a huge red flag that this person has not been called by God to teach, whether they be a pastor, a preacher, a teacher, or layman. If they are teaching that the United States is Mystery Babylon, well then you should be walking away from that person, or better yet, exposing them for being a false teacher, because this lie is so easily discerned. Now, I'm going to be comparing this lie of Mystery Babylon being the United States, and I'm going to compare it with the truth of who she really is. Because when you look at all of the identification markers, and there are many of them, the United States only fits a few of them if you were to really stretch these identification markers. Now, it should be noted that just about any city in the world today, and just about any country, could be identified as Mystery Babylon if you only looked at a few of the identification markers. However, when you look at them all, there is only one country, there is only one city that fits the bill, that all of the identification markers could be said to identify this small country as being Mystery Babylon, and that is the Vatican. But in a broader sense, it is the church in general. For Mystery Babylon really is the bride of Christ, and the mother of harlots. That is the largest denomination in the world. For the Catholic Church claims to have approximately 1 billion followers, 1 billion members of its congregation. Well, that makes her the mother of harlots. But all the other denominations, whether it be Orthodoxy, whether it be the different denominations within Protestantism, well, as you will see, they are the daughters of the great harlot. But the Vatican is called the great harlot because of her strength in numbers, because of her influence around the globe, and because she has had this, or been this, dominating force for centuries, while many of these other denominations have only come on the scene in the last 100 years or so. All right, having explained that, let's look at the evidence. First off, Mystery Babylon is said, or rather the great harlot, is said to rule over many waters, and that the waters represent people. Well, the Catholic Church for centuries certainly has been ruling over many waters. The regions of where a archbishop and such reigns over, these are called seas. Well, oceans, at least in English, they are also called seas. This is why the word seas was chosen to represent the region from which the various archbishops and the such will rule over. The Holy See is that see that identifies the Pope. So, without question, the Catholic Church does rule over many people. It rules over 1 billion people living in every nation in the world, speaking every tongue. The United States cannot be said to rule over many nations. Yes, the United States influences the leadership in many nations, or I shouldn't even say many, in a good number of nations. The United States government may be responsible for toppling other governments, toppling regimes, and putting into place puppet kings or puppet presidents and different dictators and so on. But the United States does not compare with the number of nations and the number of kings that the Pope, that the Vatican influences and rules over. Then there's the fact that she is said to have killed and martyred the saints. Well, the streets certainly have run with the blood of innocents, with the blood of Christians over the centuries due to the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church has persecuted, has hunted and killed many Christians. Tens of millions of Christians have been killed due to the Vatican, due to the Catholic Church. The United States cannot be said to have done this. They have not sought out and purposely killed Christians in any nation, let alone their own. These then are just two identification markers that point to the Vatican as being the most likely candidate, and yet at the same time also eliminates the United States as a candidate. But there is one that is even more obvious. There is one identification marker that really narrows the field down, and that is that she is built on 7 hills. Well, the Vatican itself, in its own writings, states that Rome is built on 7 hills, that the Vatican lies on 7 hills. Well, the United States, without question, cannot be said to be built on 7 hills. I mean, you would have to really stretch the facts in order to paint a picture where you could think of the United States as being built on 7 hills. So the 7 hills really is one of the clearest identification markers, identifying the Vatican as the great prostitute. Now consider the fact that when Revelation is speaking about fornication, when it's describing this prostitute, it has to do with spiritual matters. It's not talking about the citizenry running buck naked in the streets, fornicating with everyone they come into contact with. No, it's talking about spiritual fornication, having to do with idolatry, having to do with heretical teachings. Now, if you consider the United States to be the great prostitute, then you have to explain how the United States has influenced the world stage in regards to faith, in regards to the spreading of false religion. Well, you can't do it. You really have to stretch the imagination to do it. And if you can do it with the United States, well then, whatever suggestion you make, whatever stretch of the imagination you come to, the same can be applied to any nation in the world. At best, you could say the United States has influenced faith, has influenced Christianity by way of exporting the prosperity gospel. But this only started somewhere between 50 and 75 years ago. Prior to that, the United States had no real impact on the world stage when it comes to faith, when it comes to God and the such. However, the Vatican certainly has been exporting its beliefs, has been exporting its particular brand of Christianity, and has been doing it for centuries. It is the Catholic Church that married Christianity with paganism. It wasn't the United States. It was the Catholic Church, going all the way back to Constantine. It wasn't the United States that changed the Sabbath from the seventh day of the week to the first day of the week. No, that was the Catholic Church. It wasn't the United States that picked December 25th to be the day that we would celebrate the birth of Christ. No, that was the Catholic Church, and it was done so as to marry paganism with Christianity, going all the way back to Constantine. This is the fornication. This is the heresies that are spoken about in Revelation. The United States has not committed these heresies. The United States has not committed this type of fornication. Only the Vatican has. Only the Catholic Church. At least when you look at it from having the greatest influence. It is the Catholic Church. Now, what about the fact that she is described as being in the wilderness? And a woman in Revelation 12 is also described as being in the wilderness. For we find in Revelation 12 that the bride of Christ, who is the church, is said to have been taken into the wilderness and protected there for a period of time. Now note this, she is only protected for a set period of time. What this means is that God then takes his hands off, that she is no longer protected in the way that she was. This is so that Satan can test and can sift the bride of Christ, can test the church. This is the meaning of her having been taken into the wilderness and then only being protected for a period of time. Then in Revelation 17 and 18, we are told that another woman, but it's not another woman, it is the same. The great prostitute who is in the wilderness in Revelation 17 is the same woman. It is the bride of Christ that was in the wilderness in Revelation 12. They are one and the same. So no, the United States does not fit the bill, but the Vatican does. Now I would like to submit to you the passage that you see before you as additional evidence and supporting proof for the woman that is written about in Revelation 12 being the bride of Christ, and that she is in fact the same woman that is also described in Revelation 17 and 18. The passage comes from 2nd Esdras, which is one of the 14 books that make up the set of books that Protestants like to refer to as the Apocrypha. Now, as you can see in this passage, it is speaking about things in a very positive manner. This is not a negative passage at all. And what it's doing is, it is prophesying and describing how the bride of Christ is going to be established. And what it tells us is that the church would be built on these 7 mountains. The 12 trees with diverse fruit is obviously speaking about the 12 apostles, and the diverse fruit is the churches and the people that they bring to Christ. But this is talking about the main church. This is, if you will, the head of the bride of Christ. That's what's being described here. And we are told that it would be established on 7 mountains with roses and lilies. Well, these 7 mountains are the same 7 hills described in Revelation 17 and 18. And we know this is talking about the Catholic Church, and therefore talking about Rome, because of the mention of roses and lilies. For roses and lilies, if you were to do a search on the internet for symbols of the Catholic Church, symbols within Catholicism, you would find roses and lilies among them. So this is very clearly describing the Catholic Church being established, or I should say the bride of Christ being established on these 7 mountains with roses and lilies. This is very clearly identifying the bride of Christ. And then in Revelation 17 and 18, we find the same woman, only now she is an adulteress. She is a fornicator. She has fornicated with and she has become an adulteress due to the pagan nations and the pagan traditions that she adopted. She started stating and speaking blasphemies and heretical teachings. Once God's protection was removed after the set period of time and the woman was tested, she failed miserably. So 2nd Esdras really does confirm, and it gives us this great supporting evidence for the 2 women written about, 5 chapters apart, that we now know this is speaking about the same woman. One at a time of purity and innocence, and the other after she had grown to maturity and turned into a prostitute. Now, for those people who are still unconvinced that God is the one that established the Catholic Church and that at one time she was the pure bride of Christ, that the head of the church was established in Rome, and this was according to God's divine plan, well, I would like to submit the passage before you that is from a extra-biblical book known as the Book of the Words of Gad the Seer. Now, just as 2nd Esdras wrote about 12 trees, and as I explained, the 12 trees represented the 12 apostles, well, we find in this prophecy that instead of 12 trees, we have 12 shackles made of gold and silver. Well, the gold represents heavenly authority and the silver earthly authority. The lamb that is given the crown made of 3 shepherds and the 12 shackles is, of course, Jesus Christ himself, our Lord and Savior. He is the sacrificial lamb. We also know that Jesus gave the apostles authority of heaven and earth. He gave them heavenly and earthly authority. Jesus told them that whatever they bound on earth would be bound in heaven, and whatever they loosed on earth would be loosed in heaven. So this represents heavenly and earthly authority. This is what the gold and silver represents. Now, we find in Catholicism that they also use the gold and silver to represent exactly these 2 things. In their coat of arms, in their flag, the Vatican has the 2 crossed keys. These are the keys that were given to Peter. Well, these keys of knowledge, the one being gold and the other silver, represent both heavenly and earthly authority, which the Pope is said to have. Now, the 3 shepherds on the crown that is given to the Lamb represent 3 positions that he held. Jesus was king, priest, and prophet, or some might say teacher. And in Catholicism, according to the Vatican, the tiara that the Pope wears, it has 3 crowns, and they represent those 3 things. It represents kingship, priesthood, and teacher. So this prophecy of Gad the seer, it is actually prophesying about the bride of Christ. It is prophesying about the church and how it would be set up. So now when we look at this prophecy from Gad the seer, and we add to it the passage from 2nd Esdras, and you put that all together with the prophecy found in the book of Revelation, first in chapter 12 and then in 17 and 18, it becomes very obvious that the woman in 17 and 18, the great prostitute, is in fact the Catholic Church. It is the church that was established by God in Rome. And just as Israel became a prostitute, just as God had to condemn Israel for turning into a prostitute, so too did the bride of Christ. This is why God's wrath is being poured out in the end days. So for those people who think that they are going to be raptured away prior to the great tribulation, well, they have another thought coming. They are going to be very disappointed, because it is the corrupt church. It is the bride of Christ. It is the heretical teachings found in both the Catholic Church and in Protestantism, in all of the different denominations. It is because of the idolatry, the adultery. It is because of all the corruption in these churches that God's wrath is going to be poured out. So don't think for a moment that you are going to be raptured because you said a sinner's prayer and you were water baptized at some point. Now, you don't spend as much time on YouTube uploading videos as long as what I have without having come across my share of naysayers. So I am fully aware that there are going to be those Christians who will say that stepping outside of the Bible makes my video and the information contained in it null and void. They simply will not consider the information that I've shared with you from 2nd Esdras and from the book of the words of Gad the seer. So for those people, I'm going to go back to the Bible. I'm going to go back to chapter 17 and 18 of the book of Revelation. And I'm going to look at some more evidence that disqualifies the United States, but that qualifies and sets up the Vatican. The first has to do with the colors purple and scarlet that the prostitute wears. Now, the United States is not known for these colors. However, the Vatican is. Vatican members of the Catholic Church, the clergy, do in fact wear the colors purple and scarlet. So the Catholic Church is known for these colors, whereas the United States is not. And then what about the fact that the great harlot states that she is a queen? She is not a widow, but a queen. Well, the United States is not known for being a queen. The United States, the government of the United States is known as Uncle Sam. That's a far cry from stating that it is a queen. However, the Vatican, the Church, does claim to be the bride of Christ. So, yes, she would state that she's a queen. How anyone can miss this information and make the claim that the United States is Babylon is beyond me. It is so foolish that it's amazing that anyone would still be making the claim. Now, there's just one more bit of information that I'd like to share, and that has to do with the cup that she is said to hold, this gold cup. Now, I'm going to, once again, step outside of the Bible. So, if you're one of those people that don't like it, well, simply plug your ears. Because this cup actually represents Jesus himself. And being gold, it represents heavenly authority. So the cup represents heavenly authority, and it represents the authority that this prostitute claims to have, which is what the Vatican claims, but the United States does not. I say the cup represents Jesus because of an ancient Christian writing going back to the 1st century. The writing comes from the Odes of Solomon. These are songs that were written by early Christians. And from one of the Odes, it states that Jesus is the cup. Jesus is the cup, as you can see in this passage. Well, this is the meaning of the woman, of the great prostitute holding this gold cup, claiming to have authority, and that this cup represents Jesus. But she blasphemes Jesus. She blasphemes the Holy Spirit and God. this is the meaning of her holding the cup and of the blasphemies that she speaks. She claims to have this authority. And in fact, at one time, the Pope claimed to be infallible. Well, this is blasphemous. All right, that about sums up my portion of the video. As always, I do look forward to comments and messages, but I'd like to leave you with the entire video of one that was uploaded by a fellow Christian YouTuber. This person also believes that the Vatican is the great prostitute. And I believe once you watch this video that you will recognize that this must be the case, that the Pope is indeed working to set up a new world order. All right, enjoy the rest of the video, and then let me know what you think, not only of my video, but the one to follow as well. Till next time, peace and blessings.
Hey everybody, this is Mike with On Point Preparedness. I want you to take a long, deep look at this picture and recognize that the moment it is capturing is fulfillment of end times prophecy, a moment in time in which you're living. Specifically, it is the fulfillment of an aspect of Revelation chapter 18. You're looking at Pope Francis sitting front and center amongst a wave of suit and ties that have submitted themselves to Pope Francis in a very unique way in which the Bible said would happen. The event that you're looking at is called the Vatican Global Forum, and it's hosted by Fortune and Time magazine. And it was attended by some of the most prestigious businessmen across the world. This includes Fortune 500 CEOs, scholars, labor and church leaders, and philanthropists. And they had all attended in order to forge a new social compact for the 21st century with Pope Francis. That is, entering into a contract with Pope Francis and submitting themselves and their resources to his agenda. If we look at the document that was summarized by Fortune and Time magazine called Working Group Solutions, we can see exactly what the intent of this get-together was. The document starts out by stating, "Your Holiness, the report presented here is a result of the work of some of the world's most prominent business and thought leaders." Keep that very important sentence in the back of your mind as we continue. These people that attended the meeting are the world's most prominent business leaders. And these business leaders at this forum, from some of the world's largest companies, have sought to answer the Holy Father's call, that is Pope Francis, to action, forging a new social compact or social contract for the 21st century. If we look at Revelation chapter 18 verse 3, it talks about Mystery Babylon, or this whore that rides the beast in the end times, the church that is control of the one world government. And it says, "For all nations have drunk the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies." The merchants in those days were the businessmen. And as Revelation talks about events to come, it is stating that the top merchants or businessmen of the earth will submit to Mystery Babylon, to this church, seeking her abundancies and delicacies. And take a look at this picture again. The importance of where Pope Francis is situated, right in the middle of all the world's top business leaders, and they have all submitted to him their allegiance to carry out his call to action, and also submitted their resources to it as well. So now that we've set the stage, wait till you see what the working groups came out with and what their plan for us is. Now, what you're looking at is perhaps the most important aspect of this document that I feel you need to see and you need to share, because it is so readily apparent with what they're doing with regards to the mark of the beast and its spread worldwide. This working group is focused on financial inclusion, and it talks about how there remain obstacles to achieving the World Bank goal of universal financial access, and the fact that there are many challenges to obtaining this goal with hard-to-reach populations, financial literacy, and other aspects. However, here is what they propose. Jumpstart the underserved markets. Companies will support initiatives to produce digital identities. Digital identities for the 1/5 of global citizens who lack one, and therefore are shut out of the financial system. This one sentence is saying so much. It's the fact that 4/5 of the world currently has a digital identity, and only 1/5 does not. And Pope Francis's call to action is for these companies to support initiatives to produce unique digital identities for the remaining 1/5. And key words here, global citizens, something that we have seen come up on the horizon over the past 2 years, and I will begin to explain to you in just a few moments. But this is the mark of the beast, in which Revelation 13:17 talks about that no man might buy or sell save that he has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. They want all quote-unquote global citizens to have unique digital identities for the same financial system, so that no one is shut out and that everyone must play. Now, this global citizen term is something very disturbing in its own right, let alone paired up with Pope Francis's call to action. And it is a global community of people that identify with being part of an emerging world community and whose actions contribute to building this community's values and practices. At least that's what the website says. Really, it is preparing the citizenry for a one world government and the one world religion. They have festivals every single year all around the world, and in this one you can see prominent musicians, actors, and politicians flashing the all-seeing eye, the pyramid structure with their eye on top, and the mind-numbing sheep, all behind them, giving the same exact symbolism. You have people like Michelle Obama, Jay-Z, and many other more musicians, actors, and politicians supporting this initiative. Another big initiative that is paired up with Pope Francis' call to action is the Paris Agreement, the COP21. And this one also had its fair amount of occult symbolism, with this globe structure that was hung from the Eiffel Tower, which had the all-seeing eye of Osiris as part of the artwork, along with the blinded woman, in which I've done symbolism on that in prior videos. It's all linked, folks. It is all absolutely linked. And to link it even more for you, if you haven't seen my video on how the Roman Catholic Church is Mystery Babylon and all the symbolism of the prophetic chapters of the Bible and how they relate to this church, please check out this video now and share with your loved ones, because we are seeing prophecy fulfill before our very eyes. This is Mike with On Point Preparedness. Hope you all enjoyed this. God bless.